chef or OCPD or cancer or renal failure, we knew that those patients soon will be needing hospice services, and we will tell their families, and we will start teaching them. We will start our educational process, because one of the main problems that we have with the hospice services is that there's a lot of misconceptions. The first misconception that I want to do away with is that it's expensive. We will not charge you a penny. We're either going to be reimbursed by Medicare, by Medicaid, and in rare occasions by your insurance company. But if we don't get paid for our services, we cannot, and this is important that you understand, we cannot come back to you and ask you for money, because Medicare doesn't allow us to do that. Once we take a patient, we take it for good and bad. If we have to provide a lot of services for that patient to the point that we're going to lose money, that's okay. That's not, that's our problem. But we can never go turn around and tell the patient, hey, you owe us $1,000, $2,000. That's not going to happen with Avatar Home Health and Hospice. So what we do in hospice is that we have to see when the patient, and this is difficult because nobody wants to see their loved ones passed. Nobody likes that. I've been through it with my two of my siblings, with my mother, my dad, and so I have the personal experience of how difficult it is to go through that ordeal. So what we try to do with hospice is when a patient has a terminal illness and the doctor, not our doctor, but their doctor determines that patient has about 6 months or less to live, then that patient is appropriate for hospice. And that's when we stepped in. And what do we do? The most important services whatever services we provide in hospice, we got to make sure that we do it respecting the dignity of the patient, that we show all the compassion we can have, and to improve the quality of life of that patient. Because people need to understand that what happens before hospice, which I'm going to take you through an example. So say a patient in his 80s, nowadays we get a lot of patients in their 90s and even in their low hundreds. But let's say a patient is in their 80s and, he's been fairly healthy, like they say, for his age, but now he started declining. And so one day he's not feeling well, the family gets all, upset and they're nervous. They call 911, here comes the ambulance, pick him up, take him to the ER. From the ER, he goes to the hospital. He spends a couple of weeks in the hospital. From there, they send him to rehab. And he spends 2, 3, 4 weeks there in rehab, and then they send him home. So a couple of months go by, the same thing happens again. Now they don't even call the ambulance. They take the patient to the emergency room, and then the whole thing starts again. They stay in the hospital for a couple of weeks or a week, then they send them to rehab, then they send them home. Meanwhile, we have to stop and think about the quality of life of that patient. So what I ask the loved ones, the caretakers of our patients, because this is very difficult and I understand. And I said, put yourself in your husband's place or your wife's place or, your child's, those are the worst when there's a children that's passing, but put yourself in his or her place. Do you think that he or she is enjoying life? Would you want to have a conversation with them whether they want to continue all these treatments when possibly the doctor already is thinking that the patient is ready for hospice? So but again, it's very difficult because, you know, like with my dad and my mom and my siblings, I loved them. I loved them. I didn't want to let them go. So, oh, no, 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 do this and do that. And back then, especially when my mom and my dad passed, hospice was not really even very popular. So the doctors never gave us an option for hospice. So my dad spent the last 2 months of his life in the hospital. And my mom passed like the last month of her life in the hospital. What kind of quality of life did they have? They didn't get an opportunity to say goodbye to all the family, only those people that could go make it to the hospital to see them. And that was for what, half an hour, 45 minutes, and that was it. Versus when a patient is in hospice, they have 4, 6 weeks, a month, 6 months to be with the family. The family comes and visit them. Right now, we have a patient that we admitted a week ago. Yesterday, he left on a cruise for 9 days. So before, because he had to go to all these doctor's appointments and so on, he couldn't leave home because tomorrow is the cardiologist, the next day is the oncologist, and you have all these specialists taking care of him, but he had no life. And he told me so. He says, you know, Mr. Felix, all I do is ask my wife, when is my next appointment? And that's basically my life. So when the doctor told him that he should go into hospice, and I had the conversation with him, and I explained to him how hospice works, he was delighted. Instead of being afraid because he knows that his time is limited, he was very excited. He says, oh my God, no more doctors, no more tests, no more MRIs, no more of anything like that. I don't have to go to the doctor because if I need a doctor, the Avatar's doctor is going to come and see me at the house. So right away, they book a cruise and they left. And probably right now he's enjoying himself and his wife is enjoying themselves. Something they wanted to do for years, they weren't able to do. So now I want to go into how we go into like a patient. How do we start the services when a patient is hospice? So there's 2 or 3 ways that we know that a patient is hospice. If the patient is in our home health services, then we know because we get the report from the nurses, and many times the nurses calls us and they say, hey, this patient is ready for hospice, or you should be talking to his family about hospice. So that's what we do. We call the family, we make an appointment, and we explain to them all the services that are provided with hospice. Then that's one way. The other way is a hospital sends us a referral for a patient that is there and that the doctor believes that the best thing to do for that patient is to give him hospice services. And also a doctor's office could send us a referral. So of course a rehab could send us referrals, an assisted living facility, but normally it will come to one of the 3 sources: our own patients, a doctor's office, or a hospital. So what we need to understand now is, how is that process like? How does it work? So basically what we do is, the first thing that we do is we make what is called a consult, a hospice consult. So we meet with the family and we see if they have any questions about hospice. And in some cases I say, oh no, I know about hospice because my husband was in hospice. So I know that what is involved in hospice, so I know what it is. So then we forego that consultation. But for the sake of this presentation, let's say that I'm talking to you, and you're the caretaker. You're the one that just got the news that your loved one is going to pass. Maybe in 6 months or less. Usually that's what they tell you, right? So now we're talking, and so now we got over the the bad news. You already got the bad news. You're sad and what have you, but you know that you need help taking care of your loved ones. So when I come, if I was to come and see you, I would say something like this. I said, Avatar Home Health and Hospice has been in business for 20 years. Right now, we're taking care of approximately 500 patients. We have about 150 professionals helping us do that. Among those professionals, we have nurses, we have CNAs or nurses assistants, we have social workers, chaplains, visiting doctors, and many other members of the staff. So to begin with, I want to assure you that our services are not going to, you will not incur an expense for our services. Our services are not free because we cannot afford to work for free, but we're going to be reimbursed by either Medicare, Medicaid, or your insurance company. But you let us worry about that. You let us worry about that. So once we have this initial conversation about the cost, then I will explain to you then I will explain to you what services do we provide. For instance, we will provide you with the medical equipment, all the medical equipment that patient might need. A hospital bed, a bedside table, bedside commode, a wheelchair, a walker, a shower chair. Again, anything, a Hoyer lift, oxygen, whatever the patient needs, we will provide it for him or her. If the patient doesn't need the equipment now, it doesn't matter, because at any time that he needs that equipment, they can call us. You can call us, and within hours, the equipment that you need will be at your home. We will also provide you with all the medical equipment, the medical supplies that you need. So medical supplies is what you might think of like paper products. So diapers, wipes, then gloves, the mattress protectors, the lotion so the patient doesn't develop sores. So again, any medical supplies you might need or he might need. And then the medications. Any medication that is needed for hospice for the hospice treatment will be provided by us. So all of these things is very smooth. The transition is very quickly. So once our nurse, which is the first step that needs to happen, once the nurse goes to meets with the patient and does the admission paperwork, then the medical equipment, the medical supplies, the medications, they're all delivered. So the patient won't have any need to call anybody. So we're going to deliver everything, and the patient is going to be, as comfortable and as pain-free as possible, which is our purpose, is that patient doesn't suffer anymore. So remember, in hospice, we're not looking for a cure, because now the cure is no longer something that is feasible. Now we're looking for comfort and to avoid that the patient will have pain, and always treating that patient with dignity and compassion. So then once the nurse goes there and the patient receives all the equipment and they received medical supplies and the medications, then that nurse, together with our medical director, and our medical director is a doctor who specializes in geriatrics and in hospice. So between the two of them, they come up with a plan of care. So what will a plan of care look? Let's say an average patient. So an average patient will have a couple of nurses, a couple of visits from the nurse a week. He will have 3 visits from a CNA, which is a nurse's assistant, primarily to make sure that the patient is able to take a bath, and if they can, take a shower. But the CNA will be there to either do it for them or to help the caretaker help the patient take a bath. Also, they do some light cleaning, like changing the linen in the bed and that kind of thing. Again, very, very light cleaning. Then we have the visiting doctor. So instead of the patient having to go to a doctor's office, when the patient needs it, we will send the doctor to visit him. That avoids all that traveling and making the appointments and the waiting in the office and all those things that are so upsetting. So in some cases, when the family wants it and the patient might be helped by it, we will provide physical therapy and occupational therapy. Now, here we like to make kind of an explanation here. Most agencies are not going to provide the patient with a hospice patient with physical therapy or occupational therapy. Why? Because in reality, most of the times they don't need it, but also because it will cost that agency money. So we cannot charge for the visits that the therapists do. We get paid a bulk amount by Medicare, and with that money, we have to provide all the services and all the equipment and all the supplies and all the medications that the patient needs. So, in most agencies say they don't want to spend that money. With us, we have never managed Avatar by looking at the bottom line and say, well, let's say $50 here and $25 there. We don't do that. We ask ourselves, if that patient was our mother or our wife or our, my husband or my wife, what would I like the agency to do for them? And that's what we do for the patient. So what happens when they get a therapist is that, the therapist goes once, they do an evaluation, and they go 2 or 3 times. And by the time, maybe the third visit or fourth visit, the patient or the family will tell the therapist, I'm not able to do the exercises. I'm too tired. Let's stop the therapy. That happens most of the times. So the services go back to the nurse, the home health aide, the visiting doctor, and they take care of the physical well-being of the patient. But hospice is more than that. In hospice, we take care of the spiritual and the emotional needs of the patient. And this is where I'm so glad that we're providing hospice for our patients. Because really, if you're told, again, let's put ourselves in the place of the patient. If you're told that you have 4 or 6 months to live, whatever it is, and you know that this is the end, you're not going to be seeing your loved one anymore, your grandchildren, you won't see them grow anymore. You're going to say bye to the love of your life that maybe you've been together 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So this is it. This is it. This is the end. And then you have to deal with that. And then your family around you is suffering because they love you and they don't want to see you go. And that's why I love this this service. Because even though it's a difficult service, because it's hard on everybody emotionally, but we're helping people in the most vulnerable time in their lives. And we're there to hold their hands and to help them walk through this. And what happens is like the evolution that happens in hospice is something, is like a miracle. At the beginning, there's a lot of tears and a lot of sobbing and what have you. But then the nurse comes by, the doctor comes by, the CNA, and then the chaplain comes by. And with the chaplain, they have an opportunity to pray, to take communion, to read the scriptures, and to reach out. And in many cases, we have patients that haven't been to church in years. And some patients that believe at the beginning of the service says, no, I'm okay, I'm not religious. But in most cases, there's a point where the patient knows, and he says, and then they want that. They want that a spiritual connection with whatever, whether if they don't believe in God, in Jesus, whatever. If they don't believe, they still want to have a connection with whatever is on the other side. And we help them to get there. And then you have the emotional part. And then our social worker who's been trained in counseling comes in and she helps the patient with the emotional side. So this is such a complete service. And then it's not only for the patient, it's also for the family around that patient. The people that live in the same household with that patient are also going to get the nurse, not the nurses, I'm sorry, but they're going to get the chaplain service and the social worker service. And we stay with that patient, for that patient with the duration. Now, in hospice, there are actually 4 levels of care. One is the home care, which is what I just explained to you. The patient's at his or her home, our personnel goes there and we take care of him there. But let's say that the caretakers they're getting tired, because if you're taking care of somebody, it's a 24/7 job. So sometimes the caretakers go without sleeping for days. So sometimes they need a break. They tell, Mr. Felix, how about, if you bring somebody here and they stay with my husband for a few days, so I can go visit with my sister, or I can or sometimes they ask us, can you have somebody here for a couple of hours so I can go to church? So yeah, we're going to arrange for that. But then when to give the patient, the caregiver, the respite they need, that's the service that we provide. We provide them with respite care. So what will that involve? So respite care is where we get in touch with an assisted living facility that is close to the patient's home, and we arrange for that patient to spend 5 days in that facility, all expenses paid. The family doesn't have to pay anything. So the family can do something. They can go to a wedding or a funeral or just take a break and be able to relax for a few days and catch up on their sleep. And then after the 5th day, the patient returns home. Now, if the family wants to keep the patient in respite care for longer than 5 days, then on the 6th day forward, they will have to pay for the room and board. But in most cases, the patients have stayed in the assisted living facility for 3 or 4, maybe 5 days. But after that, the family wants him back home because they miss him or they miss her. So then we have the crisis care. So what is crisis care? Crisis care is when the patient becomes so upset or is in so much pain or is so anxious, or his condition is such that our nurses with our medications cannot take care of that. They cannot get the patient under control. So then what we do is that we give them 24-hour service. So somebody's there, a nurse is there with them for most of the time until that patient becomes manageable, when he becomes comfortable, when he's almost pain-free. And then we monitor that patient for 1, 2, 3 days. Normally, it will take about 1 to 2 days before that patient becomes stable. And lastly, we have the inpatient, the general inpatient care. So let's say that we do crisis care and the patient is still unmanageable. Then the patient is going to be transported to a hospital, and they're going to take care of because obviously in the hospital they can do more for the patient than we can do at home. So the patient is going to go to the hospital, and again, it usually takes the hospital a day and a half, maybe 2 days, to get that patient stable, and then that patient will get sent back home, and we continue with our hospice care. So as you can see, this service is not only very special, but it's very comprehensive. And I don't expect you to understand or to retain everything that I have said during this presentation. So I invite you to look up avatarhomehealth.com. That's our website. So you can go into avatarhomehealth.com, or you can call me directly, and I'm going to give you my own cell number. This is not the office number. This is my personal cell phone. This is where my wife, my grandkids, my daughter calls me on. And that number is 281-703-8050. 281-703-8050. And if you have any questions, please call me or get it on the internet. You can communicate with us through the website. And remember that Avatar Home Health and Hospice has a mission to help other human beings. That's what we do. We've been doing it for 20 years. Now, I'm one of the founders. I founded the agency with my daughter, who is the director of nursing, and my wife. And after 20 years, my grandchildren are beginning to join the company, and they want to continue our mission. So when you're with Avatar, you know that you're with a caring company, that we truly care for you, we care for your family, and that we feel blessed. For me, it's a blessing. I have owned different businesses before, but I never felt what I feel by owning. And I would say that this is not the most profitable business that I've been involved with, because in healthcare, the margins are very, very small. But we're not here for the profit, even though we need the profit, obviously, to keep going. But we're here for the mission of helping other human beings. And we're blessed because we can do that. And I hope that in the future, if you ever need our services, or you think that a family member or a neighbor is in need of either hospice or home health or caretaker services, do me a favor and call me at 281-703-8050. And I will be more than happy to spend time with you and with your loved ones and finding out how we can best help them. I want to really thank you for listening to our presentation. And I want to invite you to log in to avatarhomehealth.com so you can see other presentations that we're going to be preparing in the near future about different services, about insurances for people over 65, for different things, just to give you information. Because the only thing that we really do to provide an income for our families are the home health, the hospice, and the caretaker services. All the other information that we'll bring to you is for your information, and I'm glad to do that for you. So until the next time, I want to wish you the best. You know, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States. Thank you.
Estas son las redes sociales oficiales de Aliento Radio: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter y YouTube. Encuéntranos como @Aliento Radio Oficial.